The skies darkened over Earth on what historians would later call Arrival Day. Not from natural clouds, but from the shadows of massive ships that blotted out the sun. Humanity had long wondered if they were alone in the universe. On that day, in 2087, they received their answer. Jack Reynolds, a former military strategist turned diplomat, stood on the roof of the United Nations building in New York, watching as the alien vessels descended. Unlike the movies, there was no immediate attack, no devastating weapons fired upon major cities. Instead, a message broadcast in all known human languages across every communication device on the planet. Humans of Earth, you are now under the protection and guidance of the Galactic Concordance. Your primitive species will be elevated through our benevolence. Resistance is unnecessary and inefficient. The aliens called themselves the Valdari, a species that had conquered hundreds of worlds across multiple galaxies. Their physical appearance, tall, muscular humanoids with blue-tinted skin and eyes that reflected light like polished metal, was intimidating, but it was their technology that truly demonstrated the gap between them and humanity. While world leaders debated how to respond, the Valdari established bases on every continent. They offered medical advancements that cured diseases humans had fought for centuries. They provided technology that eliminated energy crises overnight. Many humans welcomed these gifts, seeing the aliens as saviors. Jack wasn't convinced. During diplomatic meetings, he noticed how the Valdari ambassador, Lord Maz, spoke of humans, with the same tone one might use to discuss clever pets. Your species has potential, Lord Maz told Jack during their first private meeting. With proper guidance, humans might even achieve associate status within a few centuries. And what does associate status entail? Jack asked. Limited self-governance, restricted space travel, resource allocation quotas, all standard procedures for developing species. That night, Jack met in secret with General Kate Wilson and Dr. Tom Reed, an astrophysicist who had been studying Valdari technology. They sat in a basement room secured against surveillance. They're not here to help us, Jack said. They're colonizing us. Just slowly enough that we don't realize it until it's too late. Kate nodded grimly. Their gifts come with tracking systems. Every bit of technology they've given us reports back to their command ships. Dr. Reed placed a small device on the table. I've been analyzing their communication patterns. The Valdari aren't alone out there. They mention other species. Some they've subjugated, some they're at war with. We're just the newest addition to their empire. Jack leaned forward. Then, there are other aliens who oppose them. Could we make contact? Potentially, Reed said. But the Valdari control all our communications now. We'd need to develop our own technology, something they haven't seen before. Then that's what we'll do, Jack decided. We form a resistance. We learn everything we can about them. We adapt their technology, but make it our own. And when the time comes, we reach out to their enemies. They outmatch us in every way, Kate said, though her voice held no surrender, only tactical assessment. Jack looked at his companions, determination hardening his features. They think they know humans. They've studied our history, our wars, our divisions, but they've missed something fundamental about us. What's that? Reed asked. We don't take well to cages, no matter how gilded they are. Humanity has faced extinction-level threats before. Plagues, world wars, climate disasters. Each time we've adapted and survived. This is just the next challenge in our history. As they formalized their plans that night, none of them could have predicted how their small resistance would grow, or how humanity's desperate fight for freedom would eventually reshape the power structures of the entire galaxy. 6 months after the Valdari arrival, Earth had transformed. Gleaming alien architecture jutted from city skylines. Disease was becoming a distant memory. Hunger had been virtually eliminated with Valdari food synthesis technology. To most humans, life under alien protection seemed better than before. But beneath this facade of progress, Jack and his growing network of rebels uncovered the truth. The Valdari weren't just monitoring humanity, they were subtly altering them. Dr. Reed discovered trace compounds in the alien food that increased docility and decreased reproductive capacity. The medical treatments, while curing diseases, also inserted microscopic tracking nodes into human bodies. They're domesticating us, Reed explained during a clandestine meeting in an abandoned subway tunnel beneath Old Chicago. Not conquering through violence, but through chemical manipulation and technological dependence. The resistance had grown to include scientists, soldiers, and civilians from across the globe. They called themselves the Free Earth Alliance. Among them was Ellie Nakamura, a brilliant engineer who had worked for the Japanese Space Agency before the arrival. "I've been reverse engineering their communication technology," Ellie said, displaying a crude but functional device. "It's based on principles we were already exploring, quantum entanglement but applied differently than our theories suggested." Jack nodded. "Can we use it without them detecting us?" "Not yet," Ellie admitted, "but I'm getting closer. Their technology is advanced but not incomprehensible. The biggest challenge is their materials, elements we've never seen before." General Wilson had been building a guerrilla force, training them in the wilderness areas the Valdari considered too primitive to monitor closely. "My people have observed their patrol patterns. The aliens are efficient but predictable. They don't expect resistance. Because their chemical conditioning works on most species," Reed added. "But humans have an unusually high genetic diversity. About 30% of us seem resistant to their docility compounds. This resistance became the foundation of their plan, while Jack maintained his diplomatic role, appearing to cooperate with the Valdari. He secretly recruited those immune to the alien influence. General Wilson's forces began conducting surgical strikes against minor Valdari facilities, gathering technology for Ellie and her team to study. The first major breakthrough came when they raided a small research outpost in the Amazon rainforest. There they discovered something unexpected: a Valdari scientist experimenting on a different alien species. The captive was small, with translucent skin and multifaceted eyes like an insect. When Jack's team freed it, the creature communicated through a series of clicks and vibrations that Ellie's prototype translator partially decoded. "Enemy of enemy, friend," it managed to convey. "Many resist. Blue giants. Coalition exists." They named the alien Pip, and despite limited communication, learned it was a Dresden scout whose reconnaissance ship had been captured. Its people were part of a coalition of species fighting against Valdari expansion. "If we can get Pip back to its people," Jack said, "we could establish an alliance. But transporting an alien across a planet under Valdari control would be nearly impossible." And the Valdari were beginning to notice the small acts of resistance. Lord Maz summoned Jack to a meeting at the main Valdari compound. "Certain humans are displaying concerning behaviors," Maz said, his metallic eyes studying Jack. "This is unusual. Most species embrace our guidance more completely." "Humans are adaptable," Jack replied carefully, "but change takes time for us." "Indeed. Perhaps our approach requires adjustment." Maz activated a holographic display showing Earth. "We've accelerated the implementation schedule. Full integration will now commence within one planetary cycle." As a wanderer, Jack left the meeting. He knew their timeline had just been drastically shortened. The Valdari weren't just planning to keep humanity as pets. They were planning to assimilate them completely. The Free Earth Alliance headquarters, hidden within Montana's mountain ranges, buzzed with urgent activity. Jack had just arrived with news of the Valdari's accelerated timeline, and leaders from various resistance cells had gathered to form a response. "Full integration," General Wilson repeated grimly. "What exactly does that mean?" Dr. Reed pulled up data on his tablet. "Based on biological samples we've gathered, I believe they plan to introduce nanites into the global water supply. These microscopic machines will rewrite human DNA, making us more compatible with their technology and more controllable." Ellie Nakamura shook her head. "We can't fight on their terms. Their weapons are centuries beyond ours." That's when Pip, the rescued Dresden, approached the strategic table. Over the past weeks, Ellie had refined her translation device, allowing for more complex communication. "Valdari not invincible," Pip clicked. "Have weakness, light frequency that disrupts their neural pathways. Temporary, but effective." This Revelation sparked the beginnings of a new plan. While the Resistance couldn't match Valdari firepower, they could potentially incapacitate them long enough to access their ships. But they needed more information and resources than they currently had. An unexpected opportunity arose when one of Jack's diplomatic contacts, a junior Valdari official named Tev, requested a private meeting. Jack met him in a secluded mountain location, prepared for a trap but desperate for any advantage. "Your resistance efforts have been noticed," Tev said without preamble, "but not all Valdari support this colonization method." Jack kept his expression neutral. "I wasn't aware there were political divisions among your kind. We present a unified front to other species," Tev corrected himself. "But some of us believe in true cooperation rather than subjugation. The current approach has led to constant warfare across multiple galaxies. It is inefficient." This ideological schism within Valdari society offered a crucial opportunity. With Tev's help, they gained access codes to Valdari systems and insights into the aliens' physiological weaknesses. Combined with Pip's knowledge of Valdari vulnerabilities, the Resistance began developing light-based weapons that could temporarily paralyze the invaders. Meanwhile, another team worked on a more ambitious project. Using components stolen from various Valdari facilities and the technical knowledge from both Pip and Tev, they began constructing a long-range communication device capable of contacting the coalition of free species that Pip represented. "If we time this correctly," Jack told the Resistance leadership, "we can coordinate with the coalition for a simultaneous attack from space while we rise up from within." As preparations intensified, a personal discovery shook Jack's resolve. During a medical examination, Dr. Reed found evidence that Jack had been subjected to experimental Valdari procedures during his diplomatic meetings, subtle neural implants designed to influence his thinking. "They've been trying to turn you, Jack," Reed said soberly. "The implants are sophisticated. I can't remove them without risking brain damage." Jack absorbed this news with cold fury. "Can you block their effects?" "I believe so. We can use modified versions of the light frequency Pip showed us to disrupt the implant's signals." This violation only strengthened Jack's determination. If the Valdari had targeted him specifically, it meant his resistance work was having an impact, despite his careful cover as a cooperative diplomat. The day before their planned global uprising, Jack had one final meeting with Lord Maz. The Valdari administrator seemed unusually agitated. "We've detected unusual energy signatures across your planet," Maz said. "Your people are planning something foolish." "Perhaps you've misinterpreted the data," Jack suggested calmly. "Humans are still adapting to your presence." Maz's metallic eyes narrowed. "No species has ever successfully resisted integration, Reynolds. Those who tried were simply replaced. Remember that when you make your choices." As Jack left the meeting, alarms began blaring throughout the Valdari compound. Their timeline had been compromised. The Resistance would need to act immediately, ready or not. The first true battle for Earth's freedom was about to begin, with humanity's future hanging in the balance. The premature activation of the Resistance plan threw Earth into chaos. Across the globe, hidden cells of human fighters emerged, armed with light pulse weapons that temporarily disabled Valdari nervous systems. The effect lasted only minutes, but it was enough to create critical openings. In New York, General Wilson led an assault team into the main Valdari administrative tower. In Beijing, resistance fighters seized control of a communications hub. Similar operations unfolded across every continent, following a carefully coordinated strategy despite the accelerated timeline. Jack found himself separated from his team when the fighting erupted at the Montana headquarters. Valdari security forces had traced their location, and now dropships descended from the sky, deploying combat units equipped with weaponry far beyond human technology. "Fall back to position Delta," Jack shouted over the comm system as energy blasts tore through the mountainside facility. "Ellie, status on the transmitter?" Ellie's voice came back fragmented through static. 70%. "I need 10 more minutes. Complete the broadcast." The long-range transmitter was humanity's best hope, their attempt to contact the coalition that Pip had described. but completing it meant holding off the Valdari assault long enough for Ellie to finish her work. Across the battlefield, Jack spotted Pip darting between cover positions, its translucent body nearly invisible as it moved. The alien scout had become an invaluable ally, using its knowledge of Valdari tactics to predict their movements. In the sky above, the massive Valdari command ships began shifting position. Rather than deploying more ground forces, they seemed to be aligning for something more ominous. Dr. Reed's voice cut through the tactical chatter. They're positioning for orbital bombardment. They're going to glass the entire region. This was the Valdari final solution. When a species proved too troublesome, they simply eradicated population centers from orbit and started over with the survivors. The resistance had pushed them to this extreme measure sooner than expected. Jack made a desperate decision. Tev, he called over a secure channel to their Valdari ally. We need access to the command ship's defense protocols now. Tev's response was grim. I've been discovered. My access is revoked. But there's another way. The primary ships maintain synchronized defense systems. If you can breach one, you can affect them all. With time running out, Jack assembled a small strike team including Pip and several of their most skilled fighters. Using one of the smaller Valdari shuttles they'd captured in previous raids, they launched toward the nearest command ship, while General Wilson's forces provided ground-based distractions. The shuttle approach was harrowing. Anti-aircraft fire lit up the sky around them. Their stolen vessel took multiple hits, its systems failing as they crashed into a maintenance bay of the massive alien ship. Half the strike team was lost in the landing, but Jack, Pip, and 3 others survived to fight their way deeper into the vessel. Ellie, Jack communicated when they reached a quiet section. We're aboard. Guide us to their central systems. Using the ship schematics Tev had provided, they navigated through the labyrinthine structure while engaging in brief, violent skirmishes with Valdari security teams. Their light pulse weapons provided crucial advantages in these close encounters, allowing them to incapacitate opponents without lengthy firefights. When they finally reached the central command node, AED, cavernous chamber filled with crystalline computing structures, Jack realized they faced a problem. The interface required Valdari biological signatures to access. We can't hack this, one team member said despairingly. Pip clicked rapidly. It's translator conveying, no need hack. Overload is simpler. The Dresden produced a small device it had been carrying, a quantum destabilizer of its people's design, specifically engineered to disrupt Valdari technology. When activated, it would create a cascading failure throughout the synchronized fleet systems. This will disable their weapons, Jack asked. And more, Pip confirmed. We'll sever their neural network. Each ship will be isolated. No coordinated action possible. As they prepared to activate the device, the chamber doors slid open. Ordiao, Maz himself stood there, flanked by elite guards. Reynolds, the Valdari administrator, said, I underestimated human tenacity. An error I won't repeat after we rebuild from your ashes. Jack stepped forward, buying time as Pip worked behind him to activate the device. You never understood us, Maz. Humans don't just survive. We defy. Defiance without power is merely noise, Maz replied, raising a weapon. The explosion that followed wasn't from Maz's weapon, but from the quantum destabilizer activating. A wave of energy pulsed outward, temporarily disrupting all technology in its path. The ship's lights flickered, gravity wavered, and the Valdari, whose neural implants connected them to their technology, screamed in unified agony as their network collapsed. In that moment, the balance of power shifted, not just on the ship, but across Earth's skies. As the Valdari fleet hung disabled in orbit, their synchronized systems shattered by Pip's device, humanity seized its opportunity. What followed was not just a military uprising, but a technological revolution. Under Ellie's direction, Resistance engineers accessed the aliens' mainframes, downloading centuries of advanced knowledge while the ship's security protocols were offline. On the ground, the disruption of the Valdari neural network threw their forces into disarray. Without central coordination, Their troops became isolated units, still dangerous but no longer functioning as a cohesive occupying force. General Wilson's fighters, despite their inferior weaponry, began securing key installations across the planet. Jack, trapped aboard the command ship with his surviving team members, faced a new crisis. The quantum destabilizer had worked too well. The vessel's life support systems were failing, and without intervention everyone aboard would perish, including thousands of Valdari civilians. "We didn't come here for genocide," Jack told his team as they worked to restore basic systems. "We came for freedom." Even Lord Maz, recovered from the initial neural shock but now a prisoner, watched with confusion as humans worked to save Valdari lives. "Your species is, contradictory," he observed as Jack personally helped stabilize a collapsed crew member. "It's called compassion," Jack replied without looking up. "Something your advanced society seems to have engineered out of itself." On Earth, Dr. Reed made a disturbing discovery while analyzing the downloaded Valdari databases. "They've done this hundreds of times," he reported to General Wilson. "Find developing worlds, elevate them through technological gifts, then gradually assimilate or replace the population. Earth was just the latest in a long pattern." But the databases revealed something else. The Valdari themselves had once been victims of the same process, assimilated by an even older species millennia ago. Their entire civilization was built on a cycle of conquest that they were perpetuating without understanding its origin. Meanwhile, Ellie had completed the long-range transmitter. Enhanced with Valdari components, its signal reached far beyond Earth's solar system. The message, broadcast in multiple formats including the clicking language Pip had taught them, was simple but powerful. "This is Earth. We have disabled a Valdari conquest fleet. We seek alliance with the coalition of free species. We offer valuable intelligence on Valdari technology and vulnerabilities. We stand ready to join the fight for galactic freedom." For 3 tense days, humanity waited for a response while consolidating their hold on Earth and the stranded Valdari ships. Jack established a temporary council comprised of both human resistance leaders and moderate Valdari like Tev, who had opposed the conquest agenda. Together, they prevented excessive retribution against the aliens while maintaining humanity's newly won position of strength. On the 4th day, the transmitter received a response, not just text or audio, but a holographic message from a being, unlike any human had seen before. 8 feet tall with 4 arms and a crystalline exoskeleton, the alien identified itself as Admiral Dren of the Coalition. "People of Earth," the translation read, "your achievement is unprecedented. No species has successfully repelled a full Valdari integration fleet in over 3,000 cycles. The Coalition acknowledges your capability and welcomes your contribution to our cause. A diplomatic vessel will arrive within 1 lunar cycle to formalize our alliance." This message was broadcast globally, confirming to all humans that they were not alone in their struggle. Earth had not just survived first contact, they had announced their presence to the galaxy as a force to be reckoned with. During this waiting period, Jack faced his most difficult challenge yet. Lord Maz, recovered from the neural disruption, and seeing the changing galactic landscape, made an unexpected proposal. "The Reformation faction that your ally Tev represents has long argued for a different approach to interspecies relations," Maz explained. "Recent events have strengthened their position among our people. Perhaps there is a path forward that does not require further bloodshed." Jack remained skeptical. "You were prepared to eradicate our population centers days ago, and you chose to restore our life support rather than let us perish," Maz countered. "Both species have demonstrated capacity for both violence and mercy. The question is which will define our future relationship." This conversation marked the beginning of complex negotiations that would continue even as Earth prepared to join the larger galactic community. Humanity had earned its freedom not just through fighting prowess but through something the Valdari and many other species had forgotten: the strength that comes from balancing technological power with moral principles. As the Coalition diplomatic vessel approached Earth, Jack stood at a window aboard the Valdari command ship, looking down at the blue planet below. What had begun in despair had transformed into defiance, and now offered a new beginning, not just for humanity, but potentially for the Valdari as well. The Coalition diplomatic vessel that arrived in Earth orbit was unlike the overwhelming Valdari ships. Where the Valdari craft were imposing and militaristic, the Coalition vessel, named Harmony of Differences in translation, was an elegant construction that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Its very design embodied its multi-species philosophy, sections built to accommodate wildly different environmental needs and biological requirements. The diplomatic delegation that shuttled down to Earth consisted of 7 different species, each evolutionary distinct. Admiral Dren, the crystalline being who had sent the original response, led the group. Alongside walked representatives from worlds humans had never imagined, a methane-breathing entity contained in a specialized suit, a collective consciousness, housed in what appeared to be a floating sphere of light, and others equally diverse. Their arrival at the newly established Joint Council headquarters in Geneva created a historic moment broadcast to every corner of the globe. For the first time, humanity was meeting the galaxy not from a position of submission, but as equals. The Coalition was formed 3,000 years ago, Admiral Dren explained during the first formal session, when the first worlds fell to what you know as the Valdari approach. We have fought not just against their expansion, but against the philosophy that drives it. The belief that technological superiority grants the right to determine another species' destiny. The Coalition representatives shared devastating information. The Valdari were merely one of several collector empires that operated across different regions of the galaxy. These empires followed a consistent pattern: locate developing worlds, provide technological advancement that created dependency, then gradually subsume the native population through biological and cultural engineering. More shocking was the revelation that this approach wasn't original to any of these empires. Evidence suggested it had been introduced to the galaxy by a far older civilization that had since disappeared, leaving behind this destructive legacy that perpetuated itself through the species it conquered. The Valdari were victims themselves. 12,000 years ago, explained Lear, the luminous sphere representing the myriad consciousness. Their original biological form was quite different before the modifications. They became the perfect vehicles to continue the cycle. Jack found himself increasingly troubled by these revelations. If this pattern has been repeating for so long, how do we break it? What's the Coalition's ultimate goal? Admiral Dren's crystalline structure shifted in what Jack had learned to recognize as their equivalent of a solemn expression. Initially survival, then resistance. Now we seek understanding. The Coalition believed that somewhere in the galaxy lay answers about the originators of this cycle, and potentially how to free species like the Valdari from their programmed imperative to conquer. The information humanity had extracted from the Valdari ships contained valuable new pieces to this puzzle. Meanwhile, Earth was undergoing rapid transformation. With access to both Valdari technology and now the diverse knowledge of Coalition species, human advancement accelerated exponentially. But unlike the controlled implementation under Valdari occupation, this was a chaotic, creative explosion of innovation guided by human priorities and values. Dr. Reed led a team focused on neutralizing the biological changes the Valdari had begun implementing in human populations. Ellie Nakamura's engineering group adapted alien principles to create uniquely human technologies. General Wilson established a new defense force incorporating lessons from both the resistance fight and Coalition military strategies. Jack found himself drawn more toward understanding the Valdari themselves. Working closely with Tev and the Reform faction, he began to see how deeply the conquest imperative was embedded in their society, not just culturally but biologically through generations of modifications. Their neural implants don't just connect them to technology, Jack explained during a council session. They create a subtle compulsion toward expansion and assimilation. It's not entirely their choice. This understanding led to one of humanity's most controversial decisions. Rather than simply expelling all Valdari from Earth, they offered sanctuary to those willing to undergo a procedure, developed by Dr. Reed and Coalition medical experts, that would disconnect them from the conquest imperative while preserving their individual consciousness. For many Valdari, including eventually Lord Maz himself, this represented a profound type of freedom they had never known. A small colony of these free Valdari established themselves in Antarctica, their physiology well suited to the cold environment humans found challenging. 6 months after the Coalition's arrival, humanity formally joined the Galactic Alliance. Earth ships, built using hybrid technologies, began venturing beyond the solar system for the first time. Human representatives took positions on coalition councils, bringing fresh perspectives to ancient conflicts. But as Earth celebrated this new era, Jack received troubling intelligence from coalition sources. Other collector empires had noticed the unprecedented defeat of the Valdari fleet. Earth was now marked, not just as a threat, but as a particularly valuable prize. The species that had defied one empire would be especially desirable to control. The galaxy, they discovered, was far more dangerous than they had initially realized. Humanity's roar had indeed rocked the cosmos, but it had also attracted the attention of predators. 5 years after humanity's successful resistance against the Valdari, Earth had become a central hub in the coalition of free species. The planet's unique history, the only known world to have repelled a full-scale integration attempt, gave humans special status among coalition members. But this distinction came with both benefits and dangers. Jack Reynolds, now serving as Earth's primary representative to the Coalition High Council, stood on the observation deck of Defiance Station, the massive orbital platform constructed at the L1 point between Earth and the Moon. Below him, the blue planet showed visible signs of transformation. New city designs incorporating both human aesthetic principles and alien efficiencies, vast restoration projects, healing environmental damage, and the distinctive gleam of atmospheric regulators that had stabilized Earth's climate. "Thinking about how far we've come?" asked Admiral Kate Wilson, who had traded her Resistance General title for command of Earth's growing defense fleet. "And how far we still have to go," Jack replied. "The Arcturus report came in this morning. Another collector empire is expanding in our direction, the Nyx Dominion." This was the reality Earth now faced. Their successful resistance against the Valdari had rippled across galactic politics. Some collector empires viewed humans with caution, others with intense interest. Earth was simultaneously being courted as an ally and targeted for potential conquest. But humanity no longer stood alone or unprepared. The coalition provided both protection and partnership, while Earth had developed its own unique advantages. The planet had become known for something no other species had managed: the successful integration of liberated Valdari into their society. The Free Valdari settlement in Antarctica had grown into a thriving community, with cultural exchange programs enhancing both societies. Dr. Reed had established an interspecies medical research center that pioneered new approaches to counteracting the biological control mechanisms used by collector empires. Ellie Nakamura now led the Earth Innovation Consortium, where human creativity combined with alien technologies to develop solutions unique in the galaxy. Perhaps most significantly, Earth had become a symbol of hope for subjugated worlds throughout the galaxy. The Earth approach entered Coalition strategic doctrine, the philosophy that technologically outmatched species could still achieve liberation through asymmetric tactics, cultural resilience, and forming the right alliances. Jack's diplomatic work now focused on building a coalition within the coalition, a specific alliance of worlds committed to breaking the cycle of conquest rather than just defending against it. This freedom initiative sought the source of the original programming that drove collector empires to their endless expansion. Their breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Pip, the Dresden scout who had helped during the resistance, had returned to Earth after extensive exploration near the galactic core. The data it brought contained evidence of an ancient installation on a world called Terminus, deep in contested space. "The Coalition has known about Terminus for centuries," Pip explained to the assembled Earth leadership, "but its defenses have prevented exploration. However, we found records suggesting it contains the source code, the original program, templates that all collector empires are built upon." This discovery led to the formation of the Terminus expedition, a dangerous mission to reach this ancient world and potentially find the key to ending the conquest cycle permanently. The expedition force centered around the ESS Prometheus, Earth's most advanced vessel, commanded by Admiral Wilson and carrying a diverse crew of humans, Free Valdari and Coalition specialists. Jack initially planned to remain at his diplomatic post, but a direct communication changed his mind. Lord Maz, now 5 years into his liberation from the conquest imperative, requested a meeting at the Antarctic settlement. "I've been analyzing my oldest memories," the former Valdari administrator said as they walked through the crystalline structures that formed the colony's architecture. "Before my implantation, I had dreams, what you would call nightmares about a place. I didn't understand them until I saw the terminus data." Maz described structures and symbols that matched exactly what Pip had discovered. "I believe the Valdari were not just victims of this cycle, but possibly its original architects, before we ourselves were conquered and repurposed. If true, we bear a special responsibility to end what we began." This revelation solidified Jack's decision to join the expedition as Earth's representative, alongside Maz, Pip, Dr. Reed, and Ellie Nakamura. The journey would take them through dangerous regions controlled by multiple collector empires, with only coalition intelligence and their own ingenuity to guide them. As the Prometheus prepared for departure, a ceremony was held at Defiance Station. Representatives from dozens of coalition worlds gathered to witness this historic mission. Jack addressed the assembled dignitaries, his words broadcast across Earth and to allied worlds throughout the galaxy. 7 years ago, humanity faced extinction or subjugation. We stood alone against a power we couldn't comprehend. But we discovered something fundamental about ourselves in that darkest hour. Humans don't accept predetermined fates. We question. We resist. We defy. That defiance sparked a flame that has grown beyond our world. Today we embark not just to protect Earth, but to free countless species trapped in a cycle of conquest thousands of years old. We go to Terminus not knowing what we'll find, but carrying the hope of a galaxy. Whatever created this system of oppression underestimated something crucial about sentient life: our fundamental desire for freedom. The Valdari discovered this when they came to Earth. Other empires will learn the same lesson. This mission may be dangerous, but the alternative, accepting an eternal cycle of conquest, is unthinkable. Humanity's roar has rocked the cosmos. Now we will see if it can transform it. As the Prometheus departed Earth orbit, beginning the long journey to Terminus, the crew couldn't know exactly what challenges awaited them. The mission might take years, might cost lives, might even fail entirely. But the effort itself represented something profound. The moment when humanity stopped simply reacting to galactic events and began actively shaping them. From a species fighting desperately for survival, humans had transformed into a force for liberation throughout the galaxy. Their unique strengths, adaptability, creativity, compassion combined with fierce determination, had proven to be exactly what the ancient struggle against the collector empires needed. What had begun in despair on arrival day had evolved through defiance to something none could have predicted: hope for an entire galaxy. Humanity's roar continued to echo across the cosmos, growing louder with each world that joined their cause, with each species that found inspiration in Earth's example. The cycle that had perpetuated for thousands of years was finally facing its most serious challenge, not from overwhelming force or superior technology, but from the simple, powerful, human conviction that all sentient beings deserve the right to determine their own destiny. End